So, good day everyone and welcome to Backstage. We are back again with a new episode, and today we'll be talking about a gorgeous and beautiful game, but don't be fooled by its beauty, because behind its cuteness there are a lot of crazy gameplay mechanics based on manipulation of time. It has been described as a love letter to classic RPG, and this game is Cris Tales.
As a child, I saw the future as a gift. Full of dreams and hopes wrapped in infinite possibility. Until the day my world fell apart.
Guards! Seize her and the shielded fellow!
And I truly learned to see. I've made my choice to stand tall in the face of tyranny. To shout no more as the strong prey on the weak. And as evil forces gather, I choose to fight, to reclaim the future from those who would try to steal it from us. Because then, they will learn the future is what I choose to make it.
And to talk about it, I'm very pleased to be joined by not less than two of the creators of Cris Tales. So today we have Carlos Rocha Silva, the game creator on Cris Tales. Hi Carlos, how is it going?
Hello Ludo, how are you? Great.
Pretty good, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to join me. And we also have the art director on Cris Tales, Sebastian Villareal. Hi Sebastian.
Hi, how are you?
Good. All good for you?
Yeah, everything is good here.
Great. So, during this interview, we'll be also playing with time because we will be talking about the past, the present, and the future of yourself, of the studio, and also of the game. And to start with the past, I will ask you first to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your relationship with games in general. When have you started playing? What have you been playing on what platform? And what has led you into creating games?
Okay, wanna start, Sebas?
Yeah, why not? Well, my first time playing video games and my first time in this world was when I was a kid. Um, at first, I wanted to make animations more than video games, but I don't know, life bring me Carlos and Jadir into my life, and we start making video games. And I say like, well, I am good making art or animations, but I don't know much about the video game industry or the video game world. So Carlos and Jadir introduced me a lot of video game culture in my life. So I began a few years ago playing more video games like before. I started playing more RPGs, more fighting games, and I fell in love with that world of game and art.
Okay. And then you had to study for developing the arts?
I don't study art in a arts college.
Yeah.
I do it by myself. I only study at the school, the basic school. But I don't know. I feel so much love for making art and animation that I forgot about college, and this is my time right now that I can remember how this uh, full of things happened to this very day.
Okay. And the result from what we have seen so far is quite brilliant.
I think so, yeah. The result is a gorgeous game that I made making with my friends that is Cris Tales. So I am very happy to the path that my life come with video games.
All right. And what about you, Carlos?
Well, I also started playing since I was very little. When I was like, I don't know, I don't even remember how old I was, but my parents brought a NES with them back in like the 80s, I think. I mean, I was born in 85. I'm older than I look, but you know, when I was very, very little, I remember I have this vague memory of my parents and waking up like at midnight and going to another room, and my parents were there with the Nintendo playing Super Mario Brothers, like the very first Super Mario, and they were like, no, 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 jump on top of the turtle or something. I was like, oh my god, they're playing a video game. I wasn't very much into video games at the beginning, but then, you know, it got, you know, as I grew up, it became more of part of me. I wouldn't say like video games are like I don't know, like the center of my life. They are definitely a very important part of me, but I would say that I enjoy, you know, different stuff that fits me, different art styles that you know, everything around the art fits me. I love that. You know, I love, of course, like movies. I love literature, novels, and you know, series, which is like booming right now. I'm very happy with that. So I kind of went into video games because it seemed to me it felt like a movie that you could play. You know,
Yeah.
so it was like a culmination, a sum of a lot of the other arts, and at the end of it, you know, there's this phrase by this by Nietzsche, the philosopher, that says, "Art, science, and philosophy grow inside me so much together that, um, nonetheless, I will create centaurs." So for me, video games are kind of my centaurs. It's a way for me to actually, you know, do a lot of what I like. So I get to talk with you know, incredible people that are so great at what they do, like, you know, musicians or you know, writers or stuff like but at the end of the day, like, that's all art, but it gets combined in this software, right? So it's art mixed with technology, and you try, at least that's what we try to do. We try to say something with that art, right? We try to
Yeah.
communicate something, which to me is like the most important element about art. And you know, that's how I kind of started in all of this. And as Sebas mentioned, we met like actually several years ago. It's not so
Like 8 years, I mean, I think,
I don't know,
right?
something like that, like 8 years ago. Yeah, we're definitely older than we think. And it was great because we started experimenting with a lot of different ideas, and I think actually the fact that we feed ourselves from different sources helps the sort of video games that we make. So we ended up like the three of us in SICK. Well, we were actually four, but like the three of us kind of working together gave shape to this thing that we call Cris Tales.
All right. Okay. And so you mentioned Sick. The game has been developed by two studios, Dreams Uncorporated and Sick. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, so it's kind of like a long story. So when I met Sebas and Yadir, I already had like a company, a video game company, uh, with uh, with which I was making a game called Heimbrick. It is another game that's also on PS4 and Xbox One, and
Okay.
it's a very weird game. Like I've always been into these really weird mechanics. So you can actually see it's developed by Below the Game, which was my kind of my previous company. But that was kind of like the last game that I did with Below the Game, and then, you know, I started developing another concept because Below the Game was like that because it was mostly for advertising and for, you know, advert games and that sort of stuff. That's why Below the Game. Uh, but I kind of wanted to give the jump to a more international type of company. So I gathered a lot of resources and a lot of knowledge that I had, the know-how that I had with Below the Game, and started Dreams Incorporated. And you know, that was kind of like the company that I kind of wanted to grow into like a you know, a more international company. And in the middle of that process, at some point, I felt like I wanted to explore a lot more, like even more crazy ideas, even crazier styles with the games, and just casually, this kid that I had never heard of and I had never met wrote to me. I remember it was on Facebook, I think, on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
He wrote to me and he said something that I had never expected that actually made me feel awesome. He asked me, "Hey, can you help me with some game mechanics for a game that I want to make?" To think about it, and I was like, "Oh my god, yes!" And we set up a date. He was late for that date, and
Yeah, I remember that.
but that was like the first time I met this incredibly talented artist that said that he had never made a video game, but that he wanted to make video games. He wanted some advice as to how to make game mechanics, and I can tell you, he's one of the best game designers that I've ever met. Even though he's a freaking genius at art, but he's also a fantastic game designer. But I will let him tell you a little bit about the story of Sick, and we can mix it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I remember being late. I was very afraid that Carlos left the date because well, I am late for everything, and I wrote to Carlos because I I understand that to make a game we don't need to create an story, an history or only a character development. I was very conscious that to make a good game we need to create first a really good game mechanics. For us, a game is its mechanics, and the game mechanics brings everything on the game, the art style, the dialogues, the story, everything is based on the main game mechanic of that game. I remember meeting Carlos. I saw him before in a presentation he had on a college. I remember look at him and say like, "Oh, this man is so cool! It's so he make video games. He's so cool." And I wanted to make games. So a couple of days later, Carlos introduced me a tier member of the SIG of the SIG studio, and this guy is called Jadir. So Jadir is an amazing and talented person who give us the parts that are missing for us. So Carlos have these brilliant game ideas. I got my art and animations, but we need that third person that takes all all this stuff and brings together in one place. So this is Jadbil. The he is today not with us, but I think he's working or sleeping. I don't know. At these days, we have a lot of work with the release of Cris Tales, so I think he is sleeping or I don't know. But it was very fun because we started to create very crazy games with very crazy ideas. Just prototyping a lot of different stuff. What about make a game with zombies, with chainsaws, with time mechanics, with everything with uh, and we experimented a lot with art, with mechanics, with stories, with I don't know, with gameplay, with everything. So
Right.
Carlos can continue if you want.
Yes, so we started doing a lot of experiments. I remember the first game that we did with Sick, and this was all while I was working still on Heinrich and doing the process into Dreams Uncorporated. So with Sick, we started doing like game jams, and that I kind of knew that first part of the process because I had done it before with Below the Game. But we started like a kind of a different path because this time with Jadir, like doing the programming and setting up the gameplay part. I'm doing like the game design and trying to come up with the game mechanics themselves, and Sebas coming up with the art and how everything would look. We reached these really super strange ideas. So, for instance, I remember like the first game, and you can talk about it a little bit, Sebas, if you want. It was called Tears of Despair, and it was the concept was around. There's a legend here, like a normal legend about a crying woman. That would be like it's called La Llorona. It's a crying woman. It's actually shared by a lot of countries in Latin America. Um, and we wanted to make a game that would tell that story. That was before it became trendy to do the Conjuring or the Haunted House and all that. I know that right now everyone is making those sort of movies, but we
Yeah.
actually started with a horror game. That was I think that was our first game as a three-man group. Do you remember that, Sebas?
Yeah, I remember. In fact, I think this was the game that make us friends. Actually, I remember being on late on Carlos' house with Jazz, uh, only drinking coffee and making that game because we have like only a week to make that game. I remember. I don't know.
Yeah, something like a month. I know. I think we had like a month.
Yeah, but first only one have. Yeah, I don't remember, but we need to make it super ultra fast. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really gory, and that's when I think the artistic elements from Sebas kind of shine, because since he came from animation, he always tried to make every like movement of the character. We couldn't have like a like giant cutscenes or anything like that. I mean, he was the only artist back at the time, so he tried to make it look like a lot was happening with very few animations, but people got horrified by how it looked. Do you remember like the animation
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
baby?
I remember that I had to make some decisions before we started to do the game. For example, for art, I have to make the decision that the game only have like four colors, like a Game Boy color palette. Because I remember because we have so little time to do it, I was thinking like I don't have time to think about colors, to think about environment, style, lighting, shadow. So I proposed to my friends like, what do you think to make this horror game with more darker colors, with less color palette, only like a Game Boy game, to make like a more doom, like more obscure game, and
Yeah.
that way I can make it. It will be more easy to me to make more assets and more environment.
All right.
Yes, so that was like the first game that we did. It was really gory and really we tried some.
Yeah,
It was sort of an adventure type of game, but it was wonderful and it looked
yeah.
amazing.
It's
Go
it's
ahead.
funny
And
because
has it been released in the end?
I don't remember. It's like on a congregate page, I think. Like it's just on a small game. It's
Okay.
like a web game, I think. But it's funny because it was a very gory horror game, and now we have Cris Tales, like it's totally different,
Ah,
like
yeah.
a
Yeah.
fairy tale, very cute, very colorful. So it's very funny. But I think the soul is here in both games.
Okay. So at that time it was still Sick Games or Sick. It's
Yeah,
called Sick.
it was sick. It's actually sick because Sebastian, Yadir,
All
Carlos,
right.
Camilo. So it's like the four of us, trying to like, getting together, make games.
Yeah.
Camilo, my brother, he helps me also like trying to come up with these weird ideas. So that was still sick back in those days. We were like making games just for fun because at the beginning we could give us the luxury of just making games because we wanted to, because it was fun. It
Yeah.
was still stressful as hell, but it was fun, and we could just create. It was just a great thing to be making. So meanwhile, Dreams was being created, and we had like a big programming department, and like some infrastructure to work. We had already made with a lot of those people, Heinrich, so we knew how to make console console games. We already had development kits and that sort of stuff. um, we had that knowledge. That was great, to have that know-how. But in SIG, we kind of were starting this other another very different and crazy idea. I mean, we did a few other games, like very very small games, like 5 to 10 minute sort of experiences. They were just
Yeah.
fun. They weren't like these incredible, big games or anything. They were just small packages of fun. And we ended up so Seek worked with Below the Game with for a few games, yeah, kind of hiring the small company, and all that. But then we came around this Cris Tales idea, and since it was like a sick idea, but it gained a lot of attention. Like for some events that I was going to attend, with Dream, they were like GDC and all that. Uh, um, we put Cris Tales because we thought it was a great game. We
Yeah.
put it up for some awards, like let's actually I did that previously with Henrik, and it was nominated for a few awards, which was great. The ideas behind Hambrick were very interesting. You can actually look it up. It's like a really crazy game. Um, but with Cris Tales, we not only had crazy ideas, but it was like a very familiar and solid gameplay. So we pushed it up to be nominated for a few awards, and our surprise came back when we saw that we had tons of nominations. We had a lot of traction. It was like unbelievable. Like people were going crazy about this game. We never expected it to be so big, in a way. So it was a little bit of a surprise for us. And I remember because that was in 2018, where I was there. I was giving a talk at GDC, and I was there for the Game Connection Awards, that happened also in San Francisco during the GDC week. And uh, uh, you know, Cris Tales was nominated for 8 awards. We won five of them, and I was
Wow.
super excited. And I remember calling Sebas like super super excited because we won, like, so to say. Yeah, I mean, we had, yeah, we shared all of the awards, but there was one in particular that he loved. Of course, we saw like best art, and I
Yeah.
remember that he told me, you have to bring me that award.
Yeah, I got that award here at my home.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my precious.
Yeah.
So
And
just to
yeah,
summarize
please.
the last piece of it, so since Sig had created this idea and Dreams had the like infrastructure, we ended up like talking to a few possible partners, possible publishers that really liked the game. So we kind of thought, okay, so with Sig, we have this really great hive mind, and with Dreams we kind of have the infrastructure. So we kind of joined forces, like the both companies, and in Sig, which, as Jad likes to describe, were like a band of pirates. Like those pirates kind of became the directors of the game, in the different areas. So we kind of direct the whole team, in Dreams, and we incorporated more people. We kind of set up like a lot of other elements. Sebas mostly created like a whole art team that he needed, because it was something very unique what he wanted to make. Again, with his animation background, he didn't want to use the usual animations for games. So he kind of mixed a little bit of the traditional way of making animations, with some game techniques. I can let him explain because I don't understand quite well. But we kind of joined forces then, and that's how, like that's why it's the co-production. This game company kind of came up with the idea and like the original prototype for all of those awards, of course we sent demos and stuff, and this other company kind of like had the infrastructure, so we joined those forces to like bring up this incredible game.
Okay, it's a bit like SIG being the concept company to create the concept and try things out, and then you have Dreams Uncorporated for the production for bigger thing if you want to get them.
Yeah,
get
we
bigger.
still in SIG kind of still direct the whole game, but yeah, that's kind of how we like to work.
Okay, and what's the size of the teams now?
How many are we, Sebas, now?
Oh, every day is one more person here. I don't remember. Like, how?
I think we're like around 30 people now.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah.
And they're yeah, like 30 people. Yeah, I miss the office actually. It's more easy to count everyone. Yeah.
And you mentioned that so you have shown the game at various events, mainly independent games events, and then you showed it at E3 2019. What has it changed for you? Was it directly the huge success? It was in PC Gamer Show, I think.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It was an incredible event. It was. I had never been to E3, to be honest, because like I don't know, it felt like way too big. We mostly go to GDC or those sort of events, and E3, it was like a dream to be there, and more so now that we had like our own stand, like our own booth.
Okay.
I remember that booth very fondly because the publisher kind of had some ideas, and I remember because I showed Sebas the ideas for the booth. He didn't like them.
Yeah, no, well, I was more like, can I make a new mock-up, a new art? Well, I don't know. I am very like, I want to make the art for everything, like the booth, the merchandise, for everything. I want to be here. So yeah, I remember being very excited. Because I mean the E3 Cris Tales. I remember that we Carlos in USA and we started here in Colombia sending messages, sending. I remember making some animations for the trailer, for the E3 trailer, and Carlos in United States and talked to me like where's going to be it's ready now and I'm working, I'm so sleepy and it was chaotic but very fun. I remember I remember that.
we kind of
Okay.
So we had to prepare a lot for that. Sebas mostly made all of the animations for that trailer, and we had to prepare a demo, which was also really really hard, because we were showing the game for the first time, and we made a really difficult strategy, which is to announce the game, show the trailer, and have the demo available, like on Steam that same.
Yeah.
So that was super risky. We didn't. I mean, like, the game could have been canceled if people hadn't liked it.
Yeah, it was very risky and we are very I'm very afraid of what's going to happen, how people are going to receive a game with that weird mechanic, that non-usual art style for video games. It's very, very colorful, very fairy tale like. So we are very, very afraid of how people are going to react. I remember that it really they a lot. I got my heart like pumping up, and it was very, very, very
And
excited.
and actually, a lot of people from Japan. There were like a lot of interviews. We had around, I don't know, maybe 20 interviews each day. And like a lot of journalists from all over the world were asking about the game, were really excited about the game. Some of them didn't know what the game was, so it was sort of an accident for some of them. But when they saw the trailer, when some of them had actually played the demo, because they were like a few days after the announcement that E3 took place. So I was there making the presentations, and I remember particularly that a lot of Asian journalists were extremely excited about the art style, uh, because of course it does have like some influences from anime, from Japan, from different Asian art styles. So
Yeah.
they were like so in love with how the game looked.
Yeah, I
Okay.
remember the Famitsu website talking about Cris Tales only in Japanese, and we're like Japanese whip ears, like, oh my god, this is a Japanese article about Cris Tales. We don't understand everything, but I so amazing. And I remember that in that articles I saw some Japanese people talking about Cris Tales and sharing their fan arts on Twitter. So when we started to see the first game fan arts for Chris Bell, for Matthias, we're starting to feel better. I don't know, to feel like, oh, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be good. I don't know how to explain that, but we feel so afraid. Uh, but then when people starting to make fan art, to starting talking about the game, we started to believe more on this, and that kind of thing give us some strength to keep working and working and working and doing the best game that we could make.
Okay. All right. And yeah, before we discuss about the game, because I would like that we go deep dive into it, uh, we have in Backstage a traditional question that we ask, and probably it's not the most easy one, but in order to know you a bit more and your references, what would be for you the best game of all time? You cannot say Cris Tales, but if you had to pick one, what would it be?
Oh wow! Uh, to me, the best game ever made for me is Super Mario Bros. 3. It's a masterpiece and is everything that I could say. Is um, it's so this game brings so unique and new mechanics to the game industry that are right now are a reference to games right now. To me, it's just a masterpiece.
Great. And for you, Carlos?
For me, my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VI. It's like it blew my mind when I played it. I thought it was an incredible narrative. Even with those really old graphics, I still think it's great. It has fantastic gameplay, a lot of pacing breaks. It's a little bit long, and some mechanics could use some refining right now. But at the time, I thought it was like the best game ever made. I still think it's like contextually, it's still the best game ever made.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about Cris Tales now. Can you describe the game? I know it. I've played demo, but can you describe the game for those who don't know it yet, and tell us what it is about?
Can you describe it, Sebas? What would you say?
Uh,
What
mm, uh, yeah, well, Cris Tales is a turn-based RPG. It's strongly inspired by other RPGs like Super Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, as Carlos mentioned before.
Yeah.
So in Cris Tales, it is just an RPG, but in Cris Tales we wanted to make an RPG based on time, but we want to go it further with our idea. So you have this strange and unique mechanic to see the past, the present, and the future at the same time in one screen. So you can, for example, see an NPC, a person, or a tree, or a prop in the present, and move the character that moves the camera to and see that object in the past, for example, or in the present. Later we add that combat systems with the same game mechanics, so you can fight enemies through time. For example, you can fight to a character that is carrying a shield in the present, and then you throw a water spell to the character and activate the future crystal. So now the shield of that enemy is now rusty, and you can deal more damage to that character. So this is the basis of Cris Tales. Is more more about the game, but I think this is the description of the game.
Okay. And yeah, it's called a love letter to those classic RPGs or JRPGs. What is pretty interesting is that you twist it a bit the concept, because most of the time those RPGs have a camera kind of top down or it's isometric, and here we have something quite different. It's in 2D, but we evaluate in a 3D world. So can you tell us a bit more about that? What's the origin of the game and why this idea?
Yeah, that actually that idea was from Jadir, and to place the camera that way. At the first, actually, we wanted to make a top-down game, more like a Final Fantasy old school game.
Yeah.
But I remember that we are talking with Jad, and Jad would come with that idea to make a 2D 3D game, because we have this past, present, and future mechanic. It would be more easy for the player to look at the sky at the same time as looks at the floor. So no prop are going to be missing. So you can see
Right.
the change of the sky, the change of the trees, the houses, the characters, and the change of the floor. And that camera system was created by Jad, and it blows our mind because I was like, he makes that prototype, and then I think like, man, I need to make art for this. And when I saw that 2D 3D space, I was thinking like, I want to make like a fairy tale style game with like cardboard, uh, paper characters. I think um, like a cutout paper book, and ended up with that Cris Tales style.
All right.
And as you mentioned, yes, I mean, I know we so something that we kind of learned from those Heimbrick days is that Heimbrick is a really weird game, and the genre is kind of puzzle, but it's also kind of adventure, a little bit of action. Something that we actually learned from those days is that you can make something unique, something innovative, as Crystal has, the mechanic of the three crystals. But if it's just if you just go with that idea and if you just try to make it like unique and just everything about it is like new, you actually lose a lot of the elements that allow you to communicate yourself with the players. So
Yeah.
we kind of thought, okay, so we have the seed of that game mechanic of seeing the three times, and we decided, okay, this mechanic can actually be used for several genres. So we talk about among us, what genre do we want to make a game? What game genre do we want to insert this game mechanic? So because at the beginning it wasn't actually an RPG, it was just like sort of an adventure puzzle game. Like you could just see the three periods of time change in real time, but you could do that for an adventure game, for a point and click sort of game, for a puzzle game. But we wanted something different. We wanted something that we would enjoy a lot more, but that we would also know a lot about. And a genre that the three of us would actually like a lot, and we arrived, to the RPGs that that all of us actually liked a lot. for Jad, and I think for my I think for him as well. At least for my brother, like his favorite game is like Chrono Trigger. Mine is it's Final Fantasy VI, and even if Super Mario 3 is Seba's favorite game, one of his other favorite games is actually an RPG, which
Yeah,
is
Super Mario RPG.
and we kind of mixed a lot of those ideas together, and we came up with this new sort of RPG concept, which yes, of course, it is a love letter to JRPGs. Those turn-based RPGs that you actually have stories. You go to towns, you go to dungeons. And you do have like the traditional element, that kind of the traditional structure that you would get from those Japanese sort of RPGs, because we have played Western RPGs, but we feel a lot more comfortable, playing the Japanese ones. So they have a traditional structure, a traditional way of using the items of some sort of those things. So we took the mechanic and the art style and the concept of this Colombian heritage that we wanted to print in the game, and we kind of put it all in this big pot. Here in Colombia we have this soup, this really big soup called sancocho.
Okay.
That it's basically like a combination of several different elements. You put a lot of ingredients on it, and the soup kind of takes the flavor of everything that you put in there. So we think it's kind of a sancocho of a lot of those elements, but with the main idea of an innovative game mechanic, but with more traditional elements. Yes, we want to try out gourmet food, but we want that gourmet food to be based on our traditional dishes, on our traditional, on the games that we have actually played and enjoyed. So it's the structure that we take and that we put like as a base, and on top of that we can play with it with these other ideas.
Okay. And the main thing that supports it is those graphical IDs, and the one that we can see behind you, Carlos. And so it's really gorgeous, and it reminds things, the cartoons from Cartoon Networks and those other influence. And I think you brought also a lot of Colombian reference into it. Can you explain a bit that what were the influences?
Yeah, well, the visual style of Cris Tales actually is a mixture of various influence, like traditional costumes here in Colombia, real places here in Colombia too, children's storybooks, and of course the work of other amazing artists, like you mentioned before. For example, Gendy Tartakovsky on Cartoon Network, old school artists on Disney like Mary Blay, Avian Earl, and even the Japanese character stylization, like for example the anime series like Utena, Sailor Moon. Well, all of that is being an influence to make the game for me. I remember that I wanted, but back in the day, I wanted to make a Disney princess, like Disney princess character, but here in Colombia. How a Disney princess would look like here in a Colombian cathedral, such the Lajas Cathedral here in the department of Nariño. So I come up with this idea to make that pleasant princess girl, and here very Colombian, very cultural. And with my friends, we started talking about that, and we really like that concept. Um, this concept of making that Colombian magic go so far that we make a concept. This concept is called endemic fantasy, which in fact my friend Carlos here is the one that invented that name, and the one that started like talking about more this concept. And I think Cris Tales represent very well that endemic fantasy concept, but I think Carlos can explain better how it's work.
I actually think Sebas gave like a great summary of it. Maybe something that I could add it's that a lot of the elements that we include there are of course artistic, like the architecture of the cities, also like the how the apparel of the people, how people wear their clothes, and all of those more traditional elements. But aside of that, we also try to print a little bit of what makes Colombia unique. So people usually have these ideas about Colombia that, of course, the media can't get enough about. But we want to show the world that we're a lot more than that. We actually have a country with really incredible vistas, with really incredible nature, with really incredible places that seem really magical. That's why something like the magical realism has great representatives here in Colombia, such as Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is Nobel Award-winning novel, 100 Years of Solitude. So he was one of the great representatives of the magical realism, which is basically taking like the really fantastical elements and making them part of your routine, part of your everyday life. So we wanted to do kind of the opposite. So we are in this fantasy world. We are in this absolutely imagine world. What if we took real elements and turned them into these fantastical places? For instance, we here in Colombia have several cities in the coast. So we have actually, we limit with the Pacific and with the Atlantic Ocean. So, it's like a very different culture for those two sides. Also at the center of the country, it's completely different. Where we are, it's very different as well. So,
Yeah.
how about if we mix a lot of those places from the Atlantic, the culture, like the costeño culture, like the coast like people, how they think, how they behave, and add a lot of those elements into the game. So one of those, for instance, you can actually find in one of the earliest cities in the game called Saint Clarity. So in Saint Clarity, you have uh, like the drainage system, the sewer system that actually makes it when it rains, it powers, and usually in most cities it basically goes to the drain.
Yeah.
So in some cities in the coast in Colombia, you have floods. Because the sewer system isn't like as as effective as it should be, and it really powers when it rains. So you can actually see like small rivers in the middle of the city.
Okay.
So it's super incredible, like a little shocking for you. And of course you can find this in the most let's say the most vulnerable places of the cities.
Yeah.
Of course, like there is like a big so we kind of made that same distinction in the game. So you have this city, like in the first part, like the let's say the part where the worker class lives. It's flooded constantly, and you actually mechanically you feel it, because when you try to walk, like this flood comes to you, and you kind of like have to walk, against the flood, and then mechanically you have to go to the sewers, which we already showed in some gameplay videos, and you have that mechanic of going against the current, and there's like another part of that same city, which is like a walled city, which is on top of this really nice place, and of course they don't have as much flooding and all that. So we try to not only have aesthetic elements, but also those aesthetic elements are part of the gameplay itself. So that's how we try to come to use the endemic fantasy in both the look and how you play the game.
Okay. And with that time, those different time dimensions that we see real time in the game, it had a big impact on the development of the game, because you had to develop it several times, or probably 3 times at least, and maybe more depending on your actions.
Yeah.
Because yeah, maybe
Yeah,
That was
it's
a
only not affect the art department. It affects all the departments. Well, of course, the art department has to make a lot of assets because we need to draw like one, two, three times, but also like four, five, or six times because if the characters make a choice and that choice affects the future or the present or this prop needs to change too. So sometimes it gets very tricky because there's a lot of different possibilities and if one asset is not drawing and don't have, for example, that future version of the future version is the same version of the present, player will look and say like, why this particular prop doesn't change? And it will think like, oh, it's a magical tree that don't change over time. But actually it's not. It's our failure to not making the tree in the future different. So we
yeah.
have to draw every single prop to provide that this don't happen.
Yeah, and I can confirm it's really what the players are doing because when I've been doing the demo, I think I've spent most of the time going left to right to see the influences of what would it be in the past and in the future, see what will happen with to characters. So it's also an additional dimension to the story.
Yeah.
That's really really great idea.
Yeah, you can find a lot of different stories only by looking at the NPCs and see
Yeah.
how they change over time without words, without text, only seeing the character, past, present, future, and you say like, oh, this what happened, and yeah, everything is so.
Yeah, it's an environmental narration.
And we have to
That
coordinate a lot because it sounds like a lot of people think in design, in game design, you just say, oh, we need like 100 different assets, and we cannot do that because otherwise we would just explode production and it wouldn't be feasible to make the game. So we have to like negotiate a lot, like, okay, how many characters, how many variations of this character can we make? Just one. Okay, then we have to like come up with just one possible variation for this. Oh no,
yeah.
this character is super easy, so we can like add several more. Okay, that's great. We can add these other elements, and that's basically a lot of the day to day. Okay, so we don't have time to create these 7 versions that we wanted. Okay, we can only do 3. Okay, what can we do with those 3? And that's adapting. That's improvising. You definitely need a plan, but you need to improvise on top of that plan. And so, among departments, we have to talk, very constantly to know what we're doing, what we're not doing, especially because it's impossible to have everything you planned originally. It's basically impossible.
Yeah, and it must have been super complicated also for the story to find all those branches that the players can go through and can you tell us a bit more about the how the story was created?
Yes. So the story we originally kind of again it's a mix of a lot of elements. We started with that idea of the endemic fantasy and trying to come up with those Colombian elements. So we took inspiration from our everyday lives, of course. Like we have a very complicated country. There's like many people fighting other people, but people here are usually very happy and very they have very uplifting attitudes. So we kind of wanted to add those elements here and there about them being present everywhere in the game. But at the same time, we wanted this to be to feel very RPG. So the story definitely is taking a big inspiration from RPGs. Like we actually in the story and the narrative, you will see a really like a very notorious influence of several RPGs, such as Super Mario RPGs, such as Final Fantasy, such as all of those elements. We do have like a lot of time mages and legendary time mages and these really weird and quirky characters, because that was also part of how we came up with how the world should look and how it should feel. It's mostly talking among us, and okay, so we want to create these other characters. We actually came up with a lot of the characters before the game was even like on production. So we kind of adapted a lot of the story. I mean, so that's how we actually create the story. We have these tons of ideas, and we try to see, okay, so the center of the idea, and actually I have a philosophy that I think can summarize the game, and that's actually something that we all use, bringing art, bringing gameplay, bringing story. It's kind of the philosophy of the game. It's learn from the past, act in the present, create your future. That is the philosophy behind all in the game. So the idea is that you would actually have to learn from the elements that you see in the past. It's not only like something that you see. It's not only like random elements on the narrative. We want you to see how was the town that you were years ago. How was the town? How does it look today? And how will it look in the future? Right? So in a way, it's sort of how you see the world. Like, you actually can learn from the past. You actually can act today, and every action that we take today is shaping the future. Action by action, choice by choice. And it is the message that we want to convey to people, but we want to say that in sort of a narrative, with a narrative feel. So Cris Bell is actually looking for her trying to learn more about herself, and she's doing so with a mentor. You actually meet him in the demo, who is Wilhelm. I'm trying to not to spoil anything here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you learn. You know this mentor, who is Wilhelm. You know this other character who is Christopher, and you try to learn from your past. You try to and then make decisions in the present. That is something very important. We don't allow Cris Bell, the protagonist herself, to travel either to the past or to the future. Like, I mean, with the crystals, we don't allow her to do that, because the idea is that you're not changing what happens. You can change what happens today. So that is how you are shaping the future, choice by choice right now. But once you do it, it's kind of set. You're not like, okay, so I'm gonna change it again, I'm gonna change it again. No, that's, you kind of have to live with some of the consequences of what you're doing. Like, you can redo everything. So we kind of also want to give you the consequences of what you are deciding upon. So it's the only thing that we're changing about the real world is that you can see the immediate consequences through a crystal. That would be like what differentiates it from the actual world. But I think it's even in that sense, it's not that different, because we can project, and we should project, what is it that we're doing today in order to obtain the things that we want from tomorrow. So that is a little bit of the story, but in the simple sense, in the summary of it, we have the Time Empress, who is like the bad guy, trying to destroy the world, and you're this little kid who seems to have awakened some powers, and you set up in this path that will eventually have you meeting her, the Time Empress, and facing you, against each other, and you will try to stop her, and be part of how the world, try to improve the world. So that's a little mix of the very summary of the game, of how the basic structure works, but also like how all of that story, all of that narrative gets built up. But as I said, it's a day-to-day communication. I remember one of the first moments when we had the first boss in Narim, which is like the Volcano Sisters, which are a fan favorite. So the original design had just a big goblin, like a sort of big monster goblin, and it was actually designed. It was actually already on the art, and I remember Sebas when they said, just I kind of don't like this, and he disappeared for like 2 days, and after those 2 days, he came back to the office and said, "Okay, this is the boss," and the
All
Volcano
right.
Sisters were born, and we had to change a lot of the story because of that. But you can get more details to that.
Yeah, well, the Volcano Sisters are a character design I love to illustrate. I really love to draw these girls. And yeah, I remember that the original idea was to create an enemy that was the leader of the previous goblins, something like a bigger version of the basic goblins. And that bigger goblin had to carry a shield. I remember that Carlos came up with that idea of the character with the shield because the mechanic of using the water spell and then send to the future and draws the shield. Um, as usual, at the art team, we made a lot of different sketches, but I felt that that giant goblin with a shield don't have enough appeal to be a recurring character on the game. At
Yeah.
the time, I was more thinking more that make the boss. I was more thinking like we need main characters on Cris Tales. At that time, only we had like Chris Bell, Matthias, Christopher, and Wilhelm. And I was thinking more like we have characters that will be recurrent on Cris Tales, characters that will be memorable, characters like will be like that kind of Team Rocket, like characters that will appear and we need to fight and talk and maybe will come be allies or be like the ultimate boss. But I took that shield of that size will be very difficult to carry for one character, even if it was a very big goblin. So I remember that I drew Volcano first, the elder brother, the elder sister, sorry, and I thinking like I was thinking like she need like a sidekick, like another character to carry the other part of the shield, because they work together to to join the shield. And I starting to sketching the idea of dividing into two large parts. Um, but the only thing that left to do to me is to make that cocky girls uh, to 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 be like so I don't know how to say it. It's like very cocky. The volcano sister attitude. Like I'm better than you. I am the boss. You cannot fight to me. You're a simple girl, and I really like it that feel for the character, and also I really liked the Volcano Sisters because the Volcano Sisters give to me something that I was looking a lot for Cris Tales, that was that like that I don't know how to explain that, but that appeal for a more mature game, for a more adult game, without
Yeah.
losing the soul of Crystal, that is that colorful world. So the Volcano Sister fits very good on the Cris Tales world, but also give another shape of a more adult content, a more adult stories, or to make more people to be engaging with the character, not only the main character that are kids like Criswell or Christopher or Wilhelm, but also more adult characters like the Volcano Sisters or the Time Empress.
Okay. And yeah, so you brought that I will jump on the gameplay or on the battle system, because you brought what you have explained everything about the story, so the time dimensions and the time manipulate or the different time dimensions. You brought that as well in the combat system, which seems simple at the beginning, but we can see directly that it has a lot of potential in terms of tactical combats because of the different skills. Unfortunately, in the demo, there was not so many skills that we could use, but we can already feel what can be done with it. So maybe can you give some examples of what we can do later on in the game? Will there be a skill tree system where you can choose what will be the skills for Cris Bell?
Well, there will not be like a sort of skill tree system. In the classical way. We do have like, so without spoiling a lot about the content, I do want to give like sort of examples. So
Yeah.
all of the characters are not only thought out from a, let's say, from a story and narrative perspective, but also from a mechanical perspective. So Christopher uses a lot of elemental magic, right? So that mixes very well with Cris Bell because everything that he does and can have some consequences in the future, right? Using the crystals. And right now you can actually test another character. It's in the demo, but like in another part of the demo that you can actually play right now called the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And in the Coliseum you can use Wilhelm, who is a natural a nature magic, and he uses these little things called yucandragoras, which are also a little based on Colombia's yucas, which is sort of a potato, that are alive. So the yucandragoras are these little plants. And why are they plants? Because they mix so well with the passage of time. So you can throw a yucca, and he has, for instance, a poison yucca. This is something that you can do right now in the demo. So you can throw a poison yucca to an enemy, and the yucca will explode and will poison that enemy, right? But the yuccas have two ways for them to be used: throwing and planting them. So you can throw a little yucca, and the yucca, it's planted in the side of the screen that the enemies are. So you can see the little leaf,
Yeah.
And it will grow and mature, and after a few turns, it will explode and make every enemy on that side of the screen poison.
All right.
But what if we speed up time using one of the crystals? If you speed up the time, you accelerate the process of the growth of the little plant, so it explodes immediately, and you can make the enemies poisoned all at once.
Okay.
So that is another example of how that happens. But here's the interesting part, and something that's what we so here's the interesting part that I think a lot of people will enjoy, and it's what we call the combo system. So imagine that you have a goblin who also has like this they have armor that it's the same material, like it's made of metal. So first Christopher throws water at that enemy, and that enemy is now wet, right? So he has the wet status ailment.
Yeah.
Then you throw a poison yucca to that same enemy. So that same enemy is poisoned and wet.
Okay.
Right? And third, you have Cris Bell, who speeds up time with the time crystal. And then well, of course, the enemy goes into the future, and the enemy now, the wet status ailment, since he's made of metal, turns into the rust status ailment, lowering its defenses and its attack.
Yeah.
But aside of that, what do you think would happen if the enemy is poisoned right now, and he was going to take, every turn he would take a little bit of damage. But since we're sending him into the future, being poisoned, all of that damage will be applied at once.
Okay.
So by sending them to the future, you make them rusted now, and you do a lot of damage all at once.
All right, so you combine the two attacks, then push everything in the future, and then you get it weaker, and you hit it more at the same time. That's
yes, and
that's really brilliant.
If you want to add like another really weird element that we're trying to put into the game, that I don't know if this is, I don't know if we have explained this particular mechanic. It's just one small thing, but it's like the time, the limit. How do we call it, Sebas? I seem to forget.
The the limit break of the crystals.
Yes.
Like the time limit.
The time limit. Yes, the time limit damage. So if
temporal limit. Temporal limit.
Okay, perfect. Yes, you're right. So if an enemy is on the future and you apply the future crystal, it's not like you just kill them. I mean, that would be a little bit of an overkill. And so the solution that we found for that is that if you already have an enemy that is very old, and if you try to send them into the future, you will do temporal limit, which is another sort of damage that you can do to an enemy. So if you have a lot of enemies in one side of the screen that are in their future form, like they're very old, because you can find enemies in the wild that are either young, like in their let's say in the average of their life, or in the later years of their life. And if you find several that are in their older years of their lives, you can do the temporal limit damage. So you can add up a lot of different sort of damages to the enemies. And positioning is also very important, where the enemies are, where you are positioned, and that can change in the future, and yeah, you can add up a lot of different mechanics and damage to the enemy that you're facing.
All right. That sounds really good, and I have the feeling we are just scratching the surface, because you don't want to spoil anything, but I guess the combat mechanics will be can be very complex and very interesting.
And I hope I'm not confusing a lot of people. You can actually test this that I'm telling you in the Coliseum mode in the demo. So you don't have to take my word for it. Just try it out yourself, and you can see how it mostly works.
Yeah, indeed. I can remind everyone that the demo is available on PC via Steam, but also on Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PS4 and PS5, I guess.
It's not on PS5 and Xbox Series X. We decided not to have a demo for those consoles, because we already had them for PS4 and Xbox One, and we said, okay, we are not very far from the release of the game, so we're just focusing on finishing the game, so they can actually play it, I think, from the PS5 on their the PS4 version. I think I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I guess it's a retro compatibility version. I've played it on Series X, and
Really?
it's working great.
Yeah, the Xbox version.
Yes.
The one version. It's the same for the PS4 on the PS5 version.
Yeah, it's a retro compatibility mode, I guess. Yeah. It's more or less the same, but maybe you can beneficiate from the accelerated loading speeds and those kind of things.
That is absolutely wonderful. But again, we didn't want to prepare for that just right now, because we're not far away. So we just wanted to just focus on this.
Yeah.
Finishing this part so people can have the game sooner.
Okay. And there is one element that we haven't talked about yet. So we have talked about the story, the gameplay. There is something else that I've been quite impressed during the demo, was the music. Because the music, we can already see that it goes into many directions. I think it starts with some kind of rock, electric guitars, and then we have some parts with very classical JRPGs music, really close to Final Fantasy, and some sounds also of Final Fantasy. I think it's some references, and also some parts of classical music, classical piano that I could hear in the field. So Can you tell us about how you made up that music and who was involved in doing that music?
Yes, of course. So yeah. Well, I have to say the main composer of the game it's called Tyson Wernley. He is an amazing musician from the U.S. actually, and you know he is doing amazing stuff, and we work amazingly with him. Like it's wonderful. You know, one of the first songs that you hear in the game was also composed by Norihito Hibino, who is you know one of the composers of Metal Gear Solid 3 and you know those sort of games as well. So you know he's very renowned. But most of the game it's by Tyson, and we have a lot of conversation with him. Actually, Sebas also has been you know we talk a lot about what sort of feel do we want with the game. We love metal, we love you know, and we love you know the classical RPG music. So we kind of mix a little bit of the two, and we came up with this sort of feel that we wanted for the music. Yeah, I mean you can talk about it a little bit more, Sebas, if you want.
Yeah, I think the music works like art in some way because if we wanted to make, for example, a theme song for the Volcano Sisters that sounds more metal and more rusty, and then we want to make a theme song for the inside of the cathedral with more calm and piano instruments, and I say like it's like art because um, all the instruments will work good, but without losing the soul of Cris Tales. Yeah, so without losing that, if you hear the volcano theme song, is a Cris Tales volcano theme song, not a metal song, not a Metallica song, for example. It's the Volcano Sisters on Cris Tales
Okay.
way song. So this is very cool to have our own music, the original music for Cris Tales, because all the songs have that Cris Tales way, that Cris Tales soul, even if it's metal or it's classical or it's more RPG style.
Okay.
And
Yeah, and
we tried to mix a little bit of Colombian influence in there
Yeah.
for him to compose, but yeah, it's like a constant conversation, showing him how everything looks, what feeling it must convey in that particular scene, or trying to have different scenes for different music themes for different moments in the game. You know, that's a little bit part of what we want to do. So you actually get you know you actually get into some, I don't want to spoil anything, but some transportation system, you know, like in those old RPGs, like you know the little boat, or in Final Fantasy the airship and stuff like that. So the music also changes in those moments to try and convey the feeling of you traveling around the world map. We do have a world map where you have like the chibi characters, you know, traversing and all that. So we also wanted to have those small elements in there as well.
okay.
Even if you use Matthias, and if you use Matthias and you travel to the past or to the future, the pitch of the music changes, and it's another additional shape to the music feel on the game. It's very cool actually.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't talked too much about Matthias, who will
Yeah,
help Chris Bell during its adventure.
What is
yeah.
Matias based off, Sebas?
Matthias is based off on, of course, a Colombian frog that is actually the most poisonous frog in the world.
Okay.
Is the golden frog. It's called here, and
The golden frog.
it's actually it's very tiny. It's like this tiny. And I remember that I saw this frog in a soul. What's it called? Well, I remember in it's very small. I drew Matthias before I saw the frog on the real world, and I was like, oh, I drew Matthias so big. It's very tiny
Yeah, because
actually.
it looks a bit bigger than that, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I remember I designed Matthias when I was designing Cris Bell because at the time I wanted to make that fairy tale uh, world, that fairy tale style of world, and I think like Cris Bell needs a sidekick kind of character, like for example in Legend of Zelda, how it's called that character that accompanies Link,
Navi.
yeah, Navi, and to me the way that drew to me was like a frog because on all that kind of princess stories there is the frog, the princess and the frog, and I just drew a frog. I think when I drew at the side of Crisbel, I think it worked very good. At that time we don't have story for Matthias, it's only just a drawing of a frog, and I remember at this time like I do the animations for Matthias jumping, and we don't have plans to include on the first demo prototype of the game. But I remember that Jad talked to me and said me like I can program that movement for the character, even if Matthias is going to do nothing. Like let's put it the frog because it's going to look cute. But then we found like starting to talk with Carlos and with Jad, like we can make this character more interesting and give a game mechanic. Like we just uh, why not use to make something about the time mechanic? Like what if Matthias travels in time, for example? What if Matthias and I said like, well, if Matthias are going to travel in time, it will look like a tadpole on the past and a bigger frog in the future. So it's very funny how and it's very cool how everything can start by just, for example, a drawing, an idea, a song, only a sketch on a piece of paper, and then because the mechanic of the game, the past, the present, and the future, everything starts to get to make more sense. Like we don't have to make this frog like a decoration for the game. Let's make the frog a part of the mechanic of the game.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
something very interesting that we used to do a lot, and we kind of set ourselves some limitations. So, for instance, we said Criswell cannot travel either to the past or to the future with the crystals. So, if she cannot travel, how about if we make Matthias the one that travels, to the past or to the future? So he does help you with some puzzles, with some environmental puzzles that actually don't affect the narrative of the game itself so much, but they do help you, solve a lot of those puzzles that we have in the game, because it's just cool mechanically to try and do that. But since she's so small, he like Matthias is so small, um, he doesn't affect the world in a grandiose way. It's just very small things that he can actually do. So due to his size and all that. So yeah, it definitely it's like a very interesting thing that so we think of mechanics as a sort of a mine that if you find a good mechanic, a lot of ideas come out of that mechanic. It's like if you find a mine that has gold, you
Yeah.
find like the first gold piece, and you know that there's more. So you start digging and you start digging, and every time you dig more, and you find a lot more gold pieces. And of course, you're gonna have to differentiate the dirt from the actual gold, but it part of when you find those golden pieces, it's absolutely wonderful, and it's like if you find that, you have found something wonderful.
Yeah, I think that the best ideas that we have are the ones that go through the game mechanic itself. That ones that represents better the game, the main game mechanic. If we make a good idea and don't fit with the game mechanic, we don't use that idea. We think that it will not work with the environment of Cris Tales. So, so yeah, it was a interesting evolution for Matthias because at the first time we don't conceive that character to be part of the main mechanic.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting to see that having the mechanics at the center. That's really the core of the system. It's it's the way to go. But on top of that, from everything that we discussed today, so the graphics, the music, the story, you managed to wrap it with something very very beautiful around it. So and it makes a really great game.
Let's hope people like it. We are extremely excited. We already have some people that are testing the game, that are, playing it, seeing how it feels. Of course, there's a lot of polish left to be done, and some stuff here and there. But we're really happy that people like it, that people like the feel of it, that they feel it's a good RPG that that we are creating, and we're not far away from that original vision that we had. And we're really excited to have this game soon in the hands of the players.
Great. No, yeah. So indeed, it will be released somewhere this year, and after that, talking about the future now, because we have talked a lot about the past, we have talked a lot about the present for the development. Let's talk a bit about the future and what's coming next. So we will have the release of the game, but do you already plan some extensions maybe to the game?
As of right now, we haven't announced anything, and to be honest, we do have some ideas and some, of course, a lot of stuff that we imagine that, oh, this would be great, but we couldn't put it into the game. But to be honest, we are like working really really hard on finishing the game right now, and we would just like for our fans to take some time with the game, to enjoy it, to savor it,
Yeah.
and take a little bit of time off. We have been working on the game for some years now, and we deserve a little rest. And
Yeah.
plan. We haven't planned. We have a lot of ideas.
The real plans are to sleep.
Yeah. And I don't know if it has been announced already, but have you already said how much time? What will be the lifetime of the game? How many hours are expected?
Yes.
With the main quest, with the side quests?
Yes. So I mean, I will give you, of course, like a ballpark.
Yeah.
Still being adjusted a little bit to see how
it depends on players as well. Huh? If it's someone like me, I think it will take twice the time you will just say just after that.
Yeah. So I mean, the let's say the average time that a player takes right now to play the whole game, I can tell you it's more than 20 hours. And some of that playtime, it's even without the side quests that we have included in the game. So we're really happy. We think we have like a decent enough playtime. We are still adjusting a little bit that to try and make it feel very powerful, like the moments. We don't want to linger too much on some places. Maybe a little bit more here, a little bit less there. But that is currently how much time it takes. Like it's more than 20 hours of gameplay for the people who want to spend some time with our game.
Great. So yeah. So I cannot wait to play this game. And I think we will wrap up because I guess you are super busy. It's the middle of the day for you in Colombia. It's just what time is it for me? It's 10:30 in the evening.
Wow.
So yeah, I will let you go back. Do you have something else to say to the players who will play the game?
I think thank you so much for your enthusiasm on Cris Tales. For the we have like a small fandom. I think like there are a lot of persons that are very very like anxious to for Cris Tales. So I am very thankful for those persons that are here waiting for the game, drawing fan arts of the characters. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for the patience, for the good words, for the kind words that they wrote to us. It motivates so much us because actually make crystals is a very, very, very difficult task for us. Is more harder than people think. It's a very complex game, and we are in the final steps, in the final version of making crystals, and we are very tired, and your words give us the strength to finish this game the way that we wanted to make it. So thank you so much.
Yes, if I can add something, is that we currently have, actually we just announced a collector's edition. For now, it's only available in the US, and you know we're also suffering because we a lot of fans wanted it in Latin America and in Europe, of course, and we are currently working on trying to have that same collector's edition for the rest of the world. But we are also very thankful and very happy because even just in the US, a lot of that collector's edition has been pre-ordered, so that has us extremely excited. That people seem to really love the game. People seem to be very excited about about when we release the game. The Matthias plushie and a lot of the art book and the pins and a lot of that what's in the collector's edition. So we're really happy. We've gotten really good reception from the audience, and we're just hope that we are able to be on par with the excitement and the hype that the game has generated. We just want to keep on working, don't let people down, and for them to actually enjoy an interesting experience.
Great. And for the people who wants to follow you and follow the work done on Cris Tales, where can they find you on the internet?
Yes, particularly we post a lot on the Dreams Uncorporated Facebook page, Instagram.
Okay.
We also have like a Cris Tales Facebook page, a Cris Tales Twitter page. It's fairly easy. So the only thing that you have to know, particularly, is that Cris Tales, it's spelled Cris, CRIS space TALES. So kind of cristales in Spanish, but separated. So it's of course a play on words of the crystals of the word crystals in Spanish. So you can look for us in those spaces. And you can see a lot of what we'll be announcing very, very soon. Just look for the trailers, because we will be posting some new trailers very, very soon.
Great. And then, so I remind you that Cris Tales will be available a bit later this year. And if you are now excited about everything that we have said today, you can play the demo. So available a bit everywhere. Is the demo on Switch as well? Because this game will be released everywhere. The demo is then available on Switch, on Xbox, on PlayStation, and on PC via Steam. Carlos
it's also
and Sebastian
on GOG.com.
On GOG. Sorry. Okay. So Carlos and Sebastian, thanks a lot for your time. It was really, really great talking with you. Much appreciated, and I wish you all the luck for the release of the game.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. I will have a good evening, and
have a good evening,
and see you next time, maybe. See you.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.